Hi again. I told you guys I take this everywhere, so I didn't lie. I'm really excited to share these guys with you today. They are some of Magento's top contributors in the community. Not the only contributors by any means, but they really do a lot to help move the community forwards. So we wanted to share with you our perspective of how you too can contribute to the community, if you're not already, which some of you already are, and really just welcome you to join us because we like lots of people involved. So. I lost my page. So to start out, if each of you guys could really just tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. Just give everyone an idea of what you are.
Well, I'm Matthew Bean. I work for a company called RoboFirm, director of systems engineering there, which basically makes me DevOps, or, last man standing at DevOps anyways. And I spend most of my day working with infrastructure problems and dealing with Magento sites mostly. But I mean, my side of things is more dealing with AWS and standing up environments, monitoring, things of that nature.
My name is Brent Peterson. I run an agency called Wagento, which is just like Magento, but with the M turned upside down. I kind of coach our team, and recently I've been really excited about customer experience.
My name is Josh Warren. I'm the founder and CEO of Creativity. Started out as our first developer. As our team has grown, I've actually finally had a chance to get back into development, focus a little less on the business side of things. Like some of the sponsors were mentioning, they're glad they're not on the sales and marketing side. I'm glad to be back in the development world. So, and as part of that, I've really focused the past couple of years on training and coaching and trying to help more developers learn Magento 2. So that's been kind of my passion lately.
So I'm Miguel Valparda, and I work for Nexus. I usually travel around the globe, and I try to go to many places and see if anyone is using Magento there. And if they are not, then it's not like I hit them, but almost, So if you want to travel, you should ask me where to go and stuff like that,
I think Miguel is secretly in a competition with Ben Marks to see who can go to the most conferences. So if all of you could just kind of share how and when you first got started with Magento.
What's up? So I started with this like 5 or 6 years ago. I didn't know much about PHP or Magento. I'm pretty young, like 26, so that's when I started. It was PHP 1, Magento 1.4 probably, and that was really tricky, Then I really like Magento, and the new version is pretty good, so at least we have that going, which is nice.
So now I feel old. I started with Magento in 2008. I was doing PHP work with e-commerce and was looking for a better option, as everyone was at the time. And I definitely, I do feel old lots of times talking to the developer community because I keep saying things like, well, back in my day when I got started, we didn't have documentation. So I'm really excited to see how much documentation we have, how much support we have from the core team with Magento 2. So that's kind of how I joined the world of Magento.
I started doing Magento about 15 years ago, doing ASP.NET.
Hey, I think you applied for a job.
Yes, I did.
I've seen that resume.
And Sherry told me not to say any jokes. Sorry. So I started by just hacking away at Magento and then asking a lot of questions on the forums, and pretty soon I'm involved in this community. So
I believe my first Magento site was late 2008, running 1.3. I did a lot of design work. I basically was creating skins and took over all my work. My business continued to grow. It was insane. And basically now I don't code, certainly not the front end anymore, because I have years and years of Linux experience prior to that that really helped, forge my DevOps path. So
4 people seems like a lot more than it is when you have to pass the mic all the way down. Cool. So For you guys, raise your hand if you've ever contributed to Magento or to any other open source project. Awesome. None of these guys, obviously. When I was at PHP World last fall, Anthony Ferreira, in his talk about PHP 7 and beyond, future of PHP, asked this question, and then let everyone know who is still sitting down. Showing up is contributing, sharing is contributing. So if you're here, you're actually contributing to Magento and to the open source world. It's not just about the code. So with that in mind, for you guys, why did you decide to start contributing to the community and to the project?
So a couple of years ago, I was using Magento Stack Exchange, and I was like, hey, I use this all the time, and I never contribute back. And I thought, hey, I really need to do this because it's really important. I get most of my knowledge from the forums, so I think it's really important to contribute back and to help others if you have been helped at some point. So that's really important in my opinion.
Yeah, it was real similar for me. I felt like there's a lot of community resources that I was taking advantage of. I was actually pretty quiet in the community the first few years. It was actually Kalen and Phil that, if anything, just how funny those two guys are and just how much fun they have. I kind of sat there and said, I need to get involved with this group. This seems like a fun group and a really good way to further my own skills and also just the skills and the platform as a whole. So,
yeah, I guess it was the same thing. I was asking a lot of questions on the forums and sometimes not getting the answers I wanted, and sometimes I'd just go back and post my answer to the question that I asked, and I realized that, hey, this is a really good idea, and coming from the Microsoft world where everything seems to be closed off, it was just a dawning of, wow, this is how it works, and it is a community.
So for me, I had contributed before it, but the first PHP World I went to, there were a couple speakers, Joshua one of them, and just left that conference going, I'm going to go speak at conferences and talk about Magento. And for the last 2 years, I've been doing that heavily. Prior to that, most of my contributions were code related, just answering questions and helping people. And overall, this has been a process that has helped me, orders of magnitude over just trying to learn on my own. When you contribute, you end up with answers to questions that you've had a long time, or that you may not have even known was a question to begin with. So there's a lot of, just going on the forums and seeing them, that's very helpful. But then when you start to participate, the rewards, multiply. So.
Awesome. Anthony also mentioned in his talk to be together, but not the same. And in another talk, someone mentioned that the world doesn't need another Miguel, the world doesn't need another Josh, the world doesn't need another Brent or Matt or any of us. They need you to be the best you that you can be. So don't worry about trying to imitate someone that you see. Just figure out how, for you can contribute. As our community grows, we really need to look at how we can work together to promote diversity and to be more welcoming to all. And I was curious what thoughts you guys had on how we can do that together collectively.
So one thing I think is that we should be supporting more languages probably. Most of the forums are in English. I don't speak English natively, so maybe if you want to speak with Spanish, me, Italian, German, we will speak those languages. And that way we can include everyone and not only the ones who speak English actually.
I think we definitely have to do the best job we can of just talking to everyone, making everyone feel welcome, everyone feel comfortable. I know that I personally, the very first Imagine I went to, I did not talk to a single person. I did more on Twitter than I did in person, and I was very honestly intimidated. It was a very smart group of people, and they had been doing this for a long time, and I let that stop me from getting involved, and I worry that there's a lot of people out there that maybe are doing the same thing, and I think that we need to do a better job of reaching out to them, just welcoming them and letting them know that we need a diversity of opinions. We need people in different roles, different backgrounds, different languages, all contributing to the community and all feeling welcome doing that.
Well, I would like to say that I am contributing to 3 languages English, American, and Canadian, so the language thing I think is coming along fine. I think, for me, it's like asking the questions and not being worried that it's a dumb question. I ask it regardless whether it's a stupid question or not, because it's a question that needs to be asked, and maybe somebody else doesn't know it. And I think what a lot of people assume, or what I assume, is that everything that I know, everybody already knows, and they probably already know a lot more than me, which they usually do. But there is that sliver of thing that you ask the right question, you get the answer you want, and it's going to help everybody. And by putting it on Stack Exchange or the forums or wherever, you're sharing it with everybody, and everybody can get that information.
I completely agree. Questions are more valuable than the answers in many cases, especially to the people who are already contributing. And so when you're starting off thinking about how you can contribute, forming those questions and getting them out there so that people can actually help you doesn't just help you, it helps everybody. And there should be no thought that there is a stupid question, because there isn't. Literally most of the questions I get challenge me, and that in itself should encourage you to ask them. Like, most of the people who have been involved in the community a long time, we have our ways that we do things, but somebody coming in will bring in all of this new energy and a new angle on these things. And so I really encourage people to ask the questions, ask the hard questions, challenge the existing status quo when it comes to things, because it's valuable to everybody.
All right, you've hinted at it some already, but what resources would you recommend for someone new to the community that wants to get started, involved with contributing or anything else?
GitHub. You have to be there. You have to follow the issues. DevDocs is there too. The new Magento forums are killing it. And then, of course, Magento Stack Exchange. That's all we have. Most of the sites, like the big companies and the small ones, are doing blog posts. So there are a lot of resources. Twitter is really good too. So there's tons of places to see new things, old things, documentation. So I don't know. I don't have a preference, actually.
So hopefully this isn't what you were going to say, Brent, but I would say Twitter. I would say that even if you don't have a Twitter account, follow the Real Magento hashtag, follow some of us on Twitter, just watch those places, because there's a lot that, whether it's not really necessarily intentionally, but a huge community of Magento developers, solution specialists, tech writers have formed on Twitter, and a lot of the questions and the conversations, new ideas are happening on Twitter. So it's definitely a good way, even if you don't want to necessarily interact, if you just want to follow along with what's going on. The forums also are a great resource. I always encourage the less technical people in the community that maybe are a little intimidated by GitHub, jump on the forums. They're definitely a friendly group there. So it's a good, easy way to get involved.
I would agree with Twitter. Snapchat is a really... No, I'm joking, not Snapchat. Facebook, definitely, though. And the forums, the new forums on Magento are great. Certainly, if you have a question, even posting it to one of the forums and then tweeting about it, you'll get some answers right away.
Don't go on Twitter. No, really. PHP conferences. You will meet a ton of people at them. They're pretty inexpensive usually. You most likely have one near you. They're all over the world. Fantastic resource because it stretches outside the Magento community and gets you into the open source world. The IRC, Freenode, Magento, and Magento 2 channel, very, very tangible people there helping. They've been there for years and are really happy to help you, although you might get a little trouble. It is the IRC. Let's see, Reddit definitely. Although they ask some hard questions there, so maybe you don't want to go there. And really, documentation. None of us have said this, but like any of us can contribute to the documentation, and there is so much of it to do, and it is probably the best and easiest way to get involved in open source anything. Start by documenting the things that nobody else has. You can easily find them because you go to look it up and it's not there, and it's not anywhere. That's your job. You just found your job. And now you've contributed, and suddenly you'll be on the side of the panel.
Yeah, and DevDocs is very welcoming to pull requests. I know some people get a little nervous because the core Magento GitHub isn't quite as welcoming sometimes to pull requests, but DevDocs, they love pull requests. They're really excited to have new documentation. Even if you just correct some typos, correct something you find that's wrong, definitely a good way to contribute.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Small disclaimer, we're working on being more welcoming to pull requests on the rest of GitHub. Bear with us. There's a lot of people who want to contribute. What advice do you guys have for people who have been around the community for a while in terms of encouraging others to contribute? What's their role and how can they help?
So you should try to apply to any conference near you. Try to go there and speak. Try to encourage others. I don't know, newcomers are always welcome in here. You can ping any of us, you can ping anyone, and you'll probably get a response on Twitter. So it's quite easy. It's not like we are a super close group or anything like that. So if you want to contribute, if you want to do anything with us, just ping us. It's not like we are superheroes or something. We're just regular guys coding, most of the time yelling at the computer, you know? So that's what we do. And that's what you should be doing too.
And I would say talk to new people. It's something that we've actually talked about some the past couple of days is we want to make sure that the four of us aren't just standing in the corner talking to each other, that we're always trying to get out there and talk to new people and encourage y'all to get involved and to contribute. Lots of times there's somebody out there with a great idea or a great question that's going to change the future of Magento and of the community. And if they don't have an opportunity to ask that, to express that, it just disappears. So definitely get out and talk to new people and encourage them and just listen to their ideas.
I think, too, you don't have to be a developer. The Magento space is full of people that have all sorts of talents. So there's, sales, and there's project management, and there's development, and there's DevOps. All those things need to be represented to be a successful community. And, of course, there's running. So you have to be a runner, too. All those things contribute to being a great community, and all those pieces play a very important part in how Magento works, how the community works, and how the ecosystem works.
I definitely think that speaking at conferences is probably one of the best ways to challenge yourself. If you can't do it at a conference, try a local user group. Even if it's just a PHP user group, you can find a lot of resonance there among the developers if you're just talking about what you know. Blogging, anything that you think of or are doing is fantastic because people use that all the time. If you look at Alan Storm's blog, he's been doing this now for almost 15 years, like Brent, and it's invaluable. And it started probably with a single blog post. And so start blogging, start getting people involved. And if you have ideas, get them out on your blog, even if they're not complete, because other people will come along and pick them up and run with it. So participation isn't really as hard as it seems. Speaking at conferences is very easy and rewarding.
Awesome. By the way, if you have suggestions of resources for people or tips for other community members, please go ahead and tweet those out on the hashtag so you can share as well, because we definitely know that you have a lot to contribute to.